Good Sunday morning and welcome to a special live edition of At Issue. I'm Corey Smith.
And I'm Sue O'Connell.
This morning we're focused on the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. By now you've likely seen the video that has sent shockwaves across the country.
We always talk politics on this show, but unfortunately today we're talking about the combination of politics and violence.
Former President Trump was injured yesterday when shots were fired during his rally at a campaign event in Pennsylvania. He is not in a hospital, and all signs are that he is feeling well. This is video from an online post from an aide who travels with the former president. It shows him moving under his own power as he makes his way down the stairs of his plane.
The shootings happened last night at 6:15 in Butler, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 miles north of Pittsburgh. His speech had only just begun when shots were fired.
Certainly, these are tough pictures to see, but as we watch it again, you can see Secret Service agents race to cover the former president after he appears to have been hit. Immediately after, you hear the pops. Again, you see the president. He's going to put his hand up to his ear right there and then drop immediately to the ground. Now, as he got up, he paused for a brief moment, gave a few fist pumps to the crowd, which applauded him in return and began chanting USA. The former president was ultimately loaded into a car and driven away from the scene. Again, he is okay. Sadly, one spectator was tragically killed in the attack. 2 others were critically injured. The suspected shooter was killed by Secret Service.
The former president has released a couple of statements on his Truth social media site about 2 hours after the shooting. Mr. Trump's account posted, quote, "I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong in that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening." In a new statement this morning on social media, Mr. Trump said, quote, "We will fear not. It is more important than ever that we stand united and show our true character as Americans, remaining strong and determined and not allowing evil to win. I truly love our country and love you all."
The FBI has identified the suspect as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. This morning, a motive is not clear. NBC News reports Pennsylvania voter records listed a Thomas Matthew Crooks with the same address and birth date as a registered Republican. He also made a small donation to a group affiliated with the Democratic Party in 2021. NBC News also reports that the weapon used in the shootings was legally purchased by his father. NBC News investigative reporter Tom Winter says the gunman has no apparent criminal history and very little social media presence.
Investigators say they're prioritizing finding a motive and determining whether the shooter had accomplices. President Biden spoke to the former president last night. Several hours after the shooting, Mr. Biden returned to the White House after spending part of the day in Delaware. In remarks following the shooting, the president called the shooting sick and condemned political violence.
There's no place in America for this kind of violence. It's sick. It's sick. It's one of the reasons why we have to unite this country. We cannot allow for this to be happening. We cannot be like this. We cannot condone this. But the bottom line is that the Trump rally was a rally that he should have been able to be conducted peacefully without any problem. But the idea that there's political violence or violence in America like this is just unheard of. It's just not appropriate. And everybody must condemn it. Everybody.
The president's re-election campaign paused outbound communications and pulled television ads following the shooting. In an email obtained by NBC, the Biden campaign also told staffers to refrain from issuing any comments on social media or in public.
Hundreds of people were at the rally and witnessed this assassination attempt, some just a few yards away when the shots were fired.
Some of those attending the rally described what they saw.
I heard pop, pop, pop. I thought it was like a cap gun. And my son's like, "Gun, get down." And next thing you know, everybody around us was down. We were up at the top of our bleacher. The men were yelling to all the snipers and all the cops to come over because he had shot a man and a woman in our bleacher.
I was in the set of bleachers, the very far left of the podium where President Trump was speaking. I was there with friends. I heard several gunshots. The man beside me suffered a gunshot wound to the head. A state police and a SWAT team, showed started evacuating the bleachers, and then I helped carry the man out of the bleachers to a tent that was behind the bleachers.
You helped carry the man yourself. What was his condition when you were carrying him?
He's deceased.
A New York Times photographer who was covering the rally captured an absolutely stunning photo. Doug Mills is a veteran Times photographer. He appeared to capture the image of a bullet streaking past the former president's head. We've circled it for you here on the screen. You can see the path of it against the clear blue sky.
There's another eyewitness account that surfaced shortly after the shooting that has already raised questions about the security at the rally.
Our Jeff Saperstone in the newsroom for us with details. Jeff, what do you know?
Yeah, it's a man named Greg Smith told the BBC reporter at the time that he saw the shooter on the rooftop a few minutes before the shooting and that he pointed the gunman out to police. Listen.
We noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Really a stunning account right there. So this is where that witness was talking about. This is an aerial view from NBC News. The 20-year-old gunman was about 150 yards away from where the former president was on stage. The shots were fired from outside of the Secret Service perimeter, according to 3 law enforcement sources. So obviously all of this, including witness statements, will be part of this massive federal investigation. Just a really stunning interview there. Corey, Sue, back over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. We're going to hear more about the many security questions from the shooting scene in just a minute, but we want to head to Wisconsin, the scene of the Republican National Convention.
NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard joins us live from Milwaukee. Vaughn, thanks for being with us. Obviously, there was already a massive security plan and presence expected before yesterday's shooting. This morning, are you seeing any enhanced security measures in Milwaukee?
Yes, there's fencing that is around not only this inner perimeter, but also the wider perimeter in downtown Milwaukee here, the heart of the Republican National Convention. Of course, tomorrow, just over 24 hours from now, is when the convention will formally gavel in here at the arena behind me, and the roll call will take place to formally nominate and make Donald Trump the Republican nominee for president of 2024. We, though, last night were here in the late hours of the night, and Secret Service was already on the ground beginning to go through and inspect this greater perimeter here and ensure the security of it. We have seen Milwaukee police presence. Of course, Secret Service is taking the lead in the coordination of the protection here. We saw several dozen Indiana State Police officers here on site. And the thousands of delegates to this convention, they are already here this weekend. There was a reception that had been planned for this Saturday night that was canceled. And so these delegates, several who I talked to, told me that they were watching this unfold from here in Milwaukee like the rest of America was. The convention is still going on as planned. Donald Trump will be taking the stage on Thursday night to give his primetime nomination acceptance address. He still has to name his vice presidential running mate, who he has not made that selection public yet. And so there is still much at stake politically in the next 4 days. But of course, usually the convention, guys, it's a little bit more of a festive environment, a celebratory occasion for the party's activists and its elected officials, and of course its presumptive nominee for president. This go around here today, it's a different aura around here, as not only the former president's life clearly so close to being at stake, but also the understanding with just less than 120 days into the presidential election, the gravity of what unfolded yesterday in Pennsylvania, and one delegate telling me that this will only energize the base of support around Donald Trump to come to his defense here in the final 3 months before the general election. guys.
To build off that, Vaughn, a little bit, of course, these conventions are highly scripted, highly choreographed, definitely made for TV political events. Do you expect that the tone and style of the RNC is going to change dramatically from what they may have been expecting to do last week for this week?
I think absolutely. I think that the idea that the presumptive Republican nominee was under a physical attack will, of course, change the direction of this in terms of the speakers that are going to address this convention and address the country. Of course, Donald Trump had laid pretty publicly quiet over the last 2.5 weeks since that Republican debate as the Democrats determined whether Joe Biden would stay on that ticket or not. And so you could expect to, of course, hear from the likes of Don Jr. and Eric Trump, his two sons, who are going to speak. We have heard from Republican elected officials, understandably, come to Donald Trump's defense from this attack, but saying just the gravity of what is at stake when we're talking about political violence in the fact that it could have taken the Republican nominee's life so easily yesterday.
All right, Vaughn, thank you so much for joining us from Milwaukee. Stay safe this week. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard. All right, joining us now is Todd McGee. He's a retired Massachusetts state trooper who specializes in security analysis. Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about the suspected shooter here. He had a rifle. How was he able to get close enough to shoot and injure the former president at an event where Secret Service is the one providing security? As we sit here less than 24 hours from this, what questions are in your mind this morning?
Well, the eyewitness account is a powerful account, and it's the classic see something, say something. The other side of that half is you need a crisp law enforcement response. So in events like this, yes, the Secret Service is the primary agency to maintain safety and security. However, it's always a joint collaboration. You have municipal and most likely Pennsylvania State Police that were also part of the security plan. So the investigation that's going to be led by the FBI will find out what officers were nearby, what officers heard, if anything, from the bystanders, and also what they were processing and what they were seeing and why they didn't take action, or if they did take action, what was the circumstances around that. So again, a lot of unanswered questions for us as we begin to sort out this investigation.
You know, Todd, one of the lessons it seems we keep learning from 9/11 is the comm systems and how everyone communicates with each other. You heard that witness account of the person who claims he warned police of the gunman on the roof. What's your reaction to what happened after that?
Somehow there was a delayed response from the ground. However, once the shots rang out, you had the snipers in place, the counter-assault snipers in place, and they shut down the threat as trained to do so. So the question here is the response that was in closer proximity to the shooter, to this young man. So those are the questions that I have. Those are the questions that need to be answered in general. Also, the security plan itself, why wasn't this particular location identified as a high ground opportunity for any type of a threat? And was that an oversight in the risk and threat assessment that was done on the venue? So again, additional questions that need to be answered.
Todd, that was going to be my next question. And if I don't know if we can, let's throw up that aerial photo of the area. Secret Service is saying this was outside of their perimeter. Why would high buildings where somebody could potentially get up on them and have a view of the president's stage, why would that be outside of the perimeter? In your experience, you know, is 150 yards usually, you know, outside of a perimeter, or is it, depending on where the location is how you determine what the perimeter is going to be?
Well, again, as you point out, Corey, there are two perimeters. There's the inside perimeter where you have a lot of attendees and supporters of Donald Trump. They would have been screened through magnetometers, most likely. You'll have a heavy uniform presence inside, as well as other additional resources. Probably Pennsylvania State Police SWAT team was also the uniform personnel in all black and camouflage that you saw after the shooting, in immediate aftermath of the shooting. As far as the outer perimeter goes, that's going to be additional resources, not just with federal resources from Secret Service, but you may also have the ATF as part of their role. You may also have FBI resources there as well, not to mention local and state police. That buffer zone is critical. That high ground, I think back to the Stephen Paddock incident in Las Vegas, where he was perched up in a hotel room and had high ground advantage. It's the same type of concept in this particular case. He didn't have the concealment of a hotel room like Stephen Paddock had, but he certainly had a high ground advantage. And essentially, we could qualify this as a successful assassination attempt. Although he didn't take the life of President Trump, we're fortunate not having to talk about that, but there was 2 additional people injured, not to mention one of the attendees that was fatal. So again, he had the advantage and executed the advantage to his to his advantage.
Yeah, certainly a lot of unanswered questions regarding the suspected shooter's motive, but also the security surrounding the event. Todd, will definitely depend on your expertise as that investigation moves forward. We appreciate you joining us here on At Issue this morning.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Sue.
All right, Amy Carnavali is the chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party. She is in Milwaukee right now for the Republican National Convention and joins us. Amy, thank you so much. Just want to get your thoughts this morning after yesterday's assassination attempt on former President Trump.
Thanks for having me this morning. So the mood in Milwaukee changed dramatically yesterday. In the morning, it was an upbeat mood. A small group from the Massachusetts delegation went over to the Five-Star Forum. We picked up our credentials or tickets for the delegates throughout the week. We saw the festivities being arranged. There was a lot of excitement and enthusiasm for the week ahead. And that changed dramatically in the split of an instant. And the mood now is much more somber and serious. We went from talking as a delegation about the presidential nominee on the Democratic side and kind of watching what's happening there to now, of course, thinking about Donald Trump and his safety and security and what that means for politics and policy and elections ahead.
Amy, have you talked to any of your peers, any other state chairs or any of the organizers about changes that may be happening to the convention?
I have. There's been a series of text messages and conversations that have taken place. There was a late night meeting last night to talk about security with leaders of the RNC. Without going into details, I do understand there additional security measures will be taken today to make the forum itself safe. I will note that Massachusetts delegation is staying right on the edge of the outer security zone. Our hotel is adjacent to the First Amendment designated area for protest and First Amendment speech and activity. So there is some concern among members of the delegation being so close to that outer edge. But I do understand additional security measures are being implemented today.
And we've got about 30 seconds left. I want to ask you about the sort of tenor of the event. We've heard from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle about lowering the temperature, watching the words that are said. What do you want to hear, keeping that in mind, from all the speakers at the RNC this week and sort of the language that they use?
Yeah, the language is certainly very important. We need to get back to talking about policy and why our policies are better than the policies on the other side of the aisle and what it means to have a next Republican presidency. And that should be the focus of the debate in the week ahead.
All right, Amy Carnavali, thank you so much for taking time. We appreciate you joining us on At Issue as usual. Thank you.
All right, still to come, all signs are that the Republican National Convention is going to begin tomorrow as scheduled. The former president says he will be there.
Our Matt Pritchard will also be there covering the RNC from Milwaukee. His thoughts on the security and the political atmosphere that he anticipates. That's coming up on At Issue.
Welcome back to At Issue. We are live this morning following developments in what the FBI is calling an assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump.
A little after 6 last night in Butler, Pennsylvania, the former president was rushed off the stage with blood on the side of his face after shots were fired just minutes into his rally. A few hours later, Mr. Trump took his Truth social media site to say that a bullet pierced the upper part of my right ear.
This morning, the FBI says the shooter is dead. He's been identified as 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Right now, a motive is unclear. Pennsylvania voter records listed a Thomas Matthew Crooks with the same address and birth date as a registered Republican. He also made a small dollar donation to a group affiliated with the Democratic Party in 2021.
Our colleague Matt Pritchard is actually on his way to Milwaukee to cover the Republican National Convention, which starts tomorrow. Before he left, we talked to Matt about the RNC and what he expects to hear from the party faithful in the wake of the shootings.
Matt, this could be a very emotional Republican National Convention. No doubt there will be heightened security there. What do you know about any potential changes we could see over the next few days?
Well, we know anytime there's a major event like this taking place, whether it's the RNC or the DNC next month, they have a massive security presence with a perimeter set up to try and keep everyone that is attending, including those headliners, as safe as possible. You have to think, though, after something like this, that security will be even more heightened, especially as we get closer and closer to Thursday, when Donald Trump is expected to give that keynote address, being named the nominee for the GOP in 2024. We assume that he will be there, and we will just wait and see what he has to say after everything that's taken place.
Matt, they do indeed say he's going to be there for the convention. That will be an emotional show of support, I imagine, for Mr. Trump at that event. Might the understatement of the year be that, oh, it's just going to be another kind of convention? What do you expect the atmosphere to be like there?
Yeah, I mean, certainly coming off of this, you have to think the entire place is going to be extremely energized, but there's also going to be a sober seriousness for everyone that's in attendance, as well as Donald Trump. This certainly is something that no other candidate that we've seen in the modern political age has had to deal with coming to a convention. So certainly we're going to see Donald Trump very energized, as he always is, but trying to bring home the point that he should be the president of the United States for the next 4 years, and that nothing, including this, is going to stop him from fighting for the country.
Matt, do you think we'll see another side of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's children? We expect Don Jr. and Eric to both speak at the convention. They're coming off of having almost just lost their father. How do you think they are going to be over the next few days?
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll see that seriousness bubble up in each of those different speeches. But at the end of the day, I think when you look at Donald Trump, you look at the Trump family and their brand of politics, you're still going to see that on display, with them pushing forward the different areas where they think that the country needs adjustments, whether that be in immigration or whether it's the economy. So you're going to see them still make their way to their different talking points, but this is certainly going to be front and center, talking about the fact that they almost lost their father, or in the case of Donald Trump, almost lost his life. Guys, back to you.
Matt Pritchard, we appreciate it. Safe travels. Matt's live reports from Milwaukee begin tonight at 6. He's going to gather reaction from Republicans on the ground in that city. All right, back here at the desk, so I want to talk to you about the heightened political rhetoric that was present before this assassination attempt. A lot of Republicans blaming the violence on President Biden and his allies, arguing the sustained attacks on Trump as a threat to democracy and authoritarian have created this sort of toxic environment. We have some sound, or actually, let's show this tweet first. This is J.D. Vance, a potential vice presidential pick. You can see here today is not just some isolated incident. The central premise of the Biden campaign is the President Donald Trump is an authoritarian fascist who must be stopped at all costs. That rhetoric led directly to President Trump's attempted assassination. What do you make of a statement like that coming so soon after the assassination attempt, when we don't know the motives here?
Yeah, it doesn't help, right? I mean, I think at this point, everyone, us, people at home, elected officials, should be saying, how can we make this not worse? And that makes it worse. Elected officials, politicians, coaches of football teams love to talk in violent terms, and 99.9% of people understand it's just rhetoric, it's just exaggeration. But some people react to it, and I think it does us all a step to just take a moment and say, do I need to speak in this fashion? Can I attack the policy without attacking the person?
Well, President Biden facing a lot of criticism this morning for a comment he reportedly made to donors last week, saying it's time to put Trump in the bullseye. Let's listen to what Speaker Mike Johnson had to say about that on the Today Show.
President Biden himself said in recent days it's time to put a bullseye on Trump. I mean, I know that he didn't mean what is being implied there, but that kind of language on either side should be called out. And we have to make clear that this is part of our system. We can have vigorous debate, but it needs to end there.
Great tone, except it would be great if people didn't have easy access to weapons either. So if they didn't have access to weapons, I don't think we'd be worrying so much about the language that our politicians are using.
Well, it'll be very interesting to see what we hear, not just at the RNC over the next few days, but from President Biden and the campaign as we move forward. And of course, we're going to continue to cover the investigation into yesterday's assassination attempt, both politically and from a law enforcement perspective. That's it for this morning's live edition of At Issue. I'm Corey Smith.
And I'm Sue O'Connell.